am a coach that supports women in midlife as they navigate these transitions, the many, many changes that happen during this time of life. Everything from retirement to taking care of their family, whether it's their parents or their in-laws, the empty nest transition. There are so many things that happen at this point in life, divorce. Um, and so my role is to really navigate with them and support them in that. And I'm here today with Carrie Freitas, who is one of my clients. And it's our first live. Very excited. Our goal is to make it just very casual conversation, very authentic. So not a lot of prep going on behind the scenes, which you may pick up on, which is a-okay. And really been focusing since the beginning. I have a newsletter that I send out, a blog that I send out, not on Substack yet, but I'm looking at combining. If you're interested in that, you can head over to bridgetbelden.com and sign up for that. It's weekly newsletters that go out. And since the beginning of the year, have really been thinking about, rather than the new year, new you, hey, let's go lose 10 pounds, do all this stuff. I was like, I really wanted to mimic more of what happens in nature. And you might have heard this term used a lot, wintering. There's a beautiful book out. Who's the author?
Catherine,
What is it?
Catherine May.
Thank you, Catherine May. Beautiful book. Just talking about what it means to drop inside, go within, insulate yourself, not in a isolation way, but really just understanding what's important to you, what you're feeling like your needs are at the time, listening to your body and what it needs. I don't have to tell anybody what crazy times we're living in right now, and regardless of how you're feeling about today, which I know there are so many mixed reactions all over the spectrum. um, there are a million things to worry about and to be concerned about. And whether it's fires or war or you name it, political situation, it is a really tough time right now. And it can feel like you're getting sucked into the chaos. And one of the things I've found on my own journey is that I've really learned how to find my peace from within. And, there's a beautiful quote that is unattributed, and I use it all the time because it just really, really is emblematic of how I feel. And it says peace. It doesn't mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart or have peace in your heart. And I so feel that resonates particularly right now. It can feel like there are so many things beyond our control, and it can feel overwhelming. It can feel depressing. It can feel hopeless. And when you can pause for a moment and start shifting the focus into, what's important for you and what you need in that moment, you can find the peace in your heart. You can be then centered and more grounded and be able to respond rather than react. Rather than getting sucked up into the chaos of the whirlwind that's going on around you, is really being able to be intentional about your movements. What feels good, what is energizing to me, what is draining to me, who are the people in my life that lift me up, what brings me joy, and really focusing and concentrating on that. And as women, some of you are moms, it doesn't really matter, but women in midlife, we are not well versed in taking care of ourselves. As you know, it is all about taking care of everybody else. We are nurturers. If you have a family, it's all about them. And you get to this point where all of a sudden you're going, wow, I don't even know what's important to me. And that was my own journey, 20 years ago. So I really wanted to bring Carrie on here because she, as a client of mine, we were talking about, she's very successful businesswoman, owns her own company, is very driven and dedicated to that. And in this culture of go, 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 it can feel counterintuitive in this backdrop of chaos to really just kind of slow down. And so I want to hand it over to Carrie. I would like you to introduce yourself and talk about your business and talk about, maybe you can share the situation we were discussing and how you were feeling, and kind of how we moved forward from that.
Thank you. Tell me, can you hear me okay? Because I've got my phone propped up in a different way so that it's like a different angle, but I don't want to be covering the speaker. So, like, does it feel like it's the mic? I mean, does it feel like it's
I can
Loud?
hear.
It's a good quality sound?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, tell me if is this better?
That's better.
Okay. So that's good right there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you, Bridget. And I think I was thinking about how long I've been your client. I was talking to someone last night about our work together and how much it's benefited me. And I think it's been 4 years. I might be, I mean, I know that like um, I had a lot of like gaps and fits and starts in our work together at the beginning because I was resistant because it
Mhm.
meant slowing down and being intentional, right? The theme of today. But it's been so transformative for me as I'm in midlife. I'm an empty nester, mom of two. I do have my own business, which is a marketing and PR company. Um, and I have a lot of interests and then also a lot of I feel like any woman in our society, a lot of should do's or people telling you, oh, you should do this, or um, culture, me interpreting culture as we do, like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be weighing this much, I should be looking this way. I should be not only maybe working inside or outside the home, but I should also be volunteering for XYZ. I
You
should
should
also
have hobbies.
yeah, I should have hobbies, which was the H word when I first met you, because I'm like, as a midlife mom, then in a different phase, I wasn't an empty nester yet. It was like hobbies, like who has time for hobbies, right? Who has time for self care? Just like you said earlier in the live, like what woman grants herself the time and space to, to take care of herself, to have a hobby. Which I think we ended up. I don't know what we ended up calling that. I think I'm cool with the word hobby now. Actually, we don't need a new word.
Good.
Uh,
See?
but
It works.
that's through our work together. I'm not telling the viewers that it takes 4 years with you to get over the word hobby because that it quicker than that. It was a quicker growth arc. But I think the most recent thing that I had that had come up in our sessions that I thought has been really an aha moment for me was um, in addition to chasing like anything and everything, both out of what I think societal conditioning, being a woman, being a working mom, and just, my own personal, like, I'm a generator, in human design. So, um, chasing everything and trying to light a fire under everything is probably the flip side of uh, that kind of paradigm. When you really should be like listening to your gut and seeing what lights you up and being more discerning.
Mhm.
Tell me about discernment, so that's like a big word for us too. But I came to you in one session with I had started a podcast, um, or restarted a podcast in the vein of, someone told me they missed the podcast, I should restart it. Had a few people tell me that. And I just kind of didn't use any discernment. And I'm just like, okay, chasing the shiny thing, let's start it. So I put a lot of time and effort and money behind a new website, the new podcast launch. And, it's a lot of work to get the guests, I mean, for lives and stuff. It's one of those things. And I cut maybe 4 episodes, and I found myself even during the tapings being like thinking kind of meta, like, "What am I doing here?
Mhm.
Like, what is this about? What am I getting from this? Am I lit up by this actual activity? Is this how I wanna spend my time?" And it's hard to interview someone, and be present when you're thinking all these background thoughts about, like, "Should I even be doing this?" Right?
Yeah.
So then I brought it to you and I said, gosh, like I've done everything right when it comes to, like I said, all the scaffolding around it, like building the website and like coming up with a name and a brand and all these, great pursuits. And then I'm sitting there going, this is not lighting me up, and this is not intentional. I felt very unintentional. I felt like I brought my work self to the podcast, which is more of like a by nature a promoter of other people's businesses, which is a great thing to do. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't at least I hadn't thought through what my goal for me with the podcast was because it wasn't monetized. It was just a pure hobby.
See?
And I found myself going, gosh, I wish I'd thought about this because I'm finding myself in my work mode in a passion hobby project, which I didn't think was additive to really me or anyone else, to be honest, listening or watching.
Mhm.
Um, that was not like the me I wanted to show up. It was an okay version. It was a non intentional version, and it was not a fulfilled version. Like it was just kind of the shell, kind of like default me.
Mhm.
And that didn't feel good. And I think, I have a tendency, as we've talked about, to rush into things. Like I think it's a lot of it's anxiety driven, where I just like, you know what, that sounds good. I'm just going to get it done. I just want to get it done, get it off my plate, or get it started, or get it rolling. And while that can be a real asset in some ways, for my clients, let's say, and for the marketing and PR side of things, especially in a crisis,
Mhm.
uh, it's not a way to live every day. I mean, it's more of a survival mode um, reaction, and engaging, kind of a way to engage with the world that feels like survival, not thriving. And so I brought it to you, and then I did a lot of we talked about that, and I don't know if you want to kind of chime in here, but to me, I thought, what wasn't happening was discernment. This is what you
Mhm.
brought up. Discernment wasn't happening. Time between like stimulus and response wasn't
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
And intentionality wasn't happening. And it was all really sped up. The timeline of a lot of things I do and was doing, the timeline sped up. And I think I give myself and everyone else that listens to this who identifies with it a lot of grace, because I think we live in a sped up timeline
For
with
sure.
social media. Like you want to respond to a story before it disappears, right? There's like this, like, okay, I gotta, um, and I feel like it takes, as you mentioned at the top, a lot of effort, discernment, intentionality, breathing practice, everything to like slow the timeline down for yourself,
I
create.
remember saying,
Mhm.
"Slow
I
down."
hear you in my head. I was out to dinner last night with another one of your clients, and she was saying, and I identify with it in a good way, like that we hear you in our head, and in the good way, not in a bad way. And that's what we came to, is slow down. So that's my new mantra, is slow down is the command that I hear in my head of you. Um, and the way I state it is go slow.
So before we move on to what that looks like for you, I just wanted to kind of touch base on a couple things you mentioned that I think are really, really relevant. One was this need, it's not only everything's sped up, but there's this need for productivity. And
Mm,
if we're not productive, then we're failing essentially. And that is a societal cultural thing. And then you throw in there, if you're a mom, say you're working, you're taking care of the kids, right? You have to be productive and be in that mode,
mhm.
and it really feels counterintuitive to just take your time. And I remember our conversation, you were talking about how, it was just like, okay, I'm on to the next thing. And talking about what would it look like if you were able to say, make a list of the things that interest you and just kind of leave them there and maybe pull the thread on a couple of them if they keep bubbling up over time. Pull the thread and kind of see what it looks like and maybe do some research and then really feeling like, okay, what would that feel like to me? So that's the discernment and the slowing down. The other thing you talked about is
Oh,
kind of
sorry.
that.
I
Oh,
just wanted to say in there, even you saying it right now, and when you said it to me in the first place, that can seem so out there. Like to
yeah.
think about, I think for any, women, moms, not moms watching, it's like thinking about writing a list down and taking no action against it and just letting things bubble up. Yeah, I'm like, I I
Let
mean,
me check things off.
I'm doing it now, but it's a leap of faith for sure, Bridget. I feel like it's a different way of being, and it's a better way, but I'm still, I just want to say that I'm like uncomfortable with it every day, but I know that's a good thing from our work together. Um, but I just want to say that at the time seemed like a to do. It's like I'm like, it's not a to do list. Like I didn't understand what
Yeah.
to do with that.
It's yeah, and I agree with you, and I think it is counterintuitive because I listen, I like checking things off my list more, as much as anybody. It really feels good because you do feel like, okay, especially when you've got a little tasky things that need to be done. But these bigger ideas, these things that keep tugging at your heartstrings, these things that you really want to invest your time and your heart into, those things take some time to really get some clarification because it is an investment. You want to enjoy your time while you're doing it, right? The other thing you talked about, so thank you for bringing that up. The other thing you talked about was like, the structure piece. You had the structure in place, you built the website, you had the name, you got all the stuff together. And how, this was a huge learning for me in my work, and my growth journey was really learning how to drop into the feminine energy. And
That's very alien to me too.
yeah, it's a practice. The
Mhm,
intuitive as opposed to figuring things out. I was always in my head. I came from the corporate world. The first thing I did when I wanted to start this business, once I decided I want to move forward, I need a name, I need a logo, I need a brand statement. Like I need all the things. And then it's like, and then I'll figure out what it actually looks like. If I think about writing a book, I want to know what the name of it is. I want to know what the outline is. I want to know what the chapters is. I want to know what my voice is. Like instead of going, from the inside out and just going, what does that feel like? It's a totally different feeling, but I will
mhm,
also say it is so much more nourishing and energizing, and it just is so much more, for me anyway, it feels really good.
mhm,
And then the last thing, and then we'll talk about how, is all of this is to say, in the midst of your life, and you mentioned this, is like, how do I want to show up? How
mhm,
do I want to show up for the people that love me? How do I want to show up with the people I meet? How do I want to show up in my community? How do I want to show up for my family? Like all these things of, do I want to show up as like a maniacal, crazy person who is just like getting shit done and, moving on to the next thing? Or do I want to show up as somebody who is centered and available when people need you, and also feeling really fulfilled by that instead
mhm.
of drained by that, right?
Yes.
So thank you for all of that. And then the other, as we talk about, what did that look like for you? And all of this is a practice, right?
Mhm,
And you started identifying in that conversation, like how slowing down, how you
mm.
can begin to integrate, practice integrating, slowing down into your everyday life. So what did you do?
So, well, what I said I would do and what I'm doing might be two different things, but they're both, I'm trying to align both of them, right? So, like anything else, it's an imperfect process,
Yeah.
right? So, but I am doing a lot of things, and I think other things I'm growing towards, right? Which is really great. So, slowing down for me meant, and it was interesting because, I have battled in my work with you and just in general about like having a routine. I have felt, and I've been talking to a lot of people outside of our work together to see if it's just me or, and I think a lot of people battle routine because they feel like it's going to get mundane, or it's like they feel too controlled by it. Um, and they don't want to be a slave to yet something else and some other self-imposed timeline, and structure. But what I did have found is that the days that I'm not in routine that I've outlined that helps me work be a little more intentional. I do feel that chaotic energy because I don't
Mm,
prescribed next step or things that I want to accomplish. So I think one of the key things was to start a routine, or you had told me that if I didn't like the word routine, I could use ritual, which also feels great. Uh, and so, to me, that is really something necessary, is to build that framework like around your schedule, because that way you help protect it. So for example,
mhm,
if I want to like spend some time intentionally on my business, cultivating new clients, like I need to set that time aside and I need to have a plan. And that takes time. So, anxious brain would tell you just to like start making calls,
mhm,
like willy-nilly. Who do I know? And this could be true of anything. Um, and I really had to step back and go, let's be a little more intentional. Like, what kind of clients do I want? Um, they may not be the clients I can like close in a day because I know somebody, but like, in the long run, it'll be better. So it's like setting up a plan, a schedule, and sticking to that to the most part. I mean, giving yourself a little grace here and there. So that was number one. I think number two was journaling and some kind of like meditative or breathwork practice
mhm,
to literally slow things down. When I'm journaling, I put pen to paper, so I can't write as fast as my brain goes, so I have to slow down there, and I'm doing it in a quiet time of day for myself that I've set aside in the routine or ritual, so that's another slowing down. It's like I
mhm,
can't just jump into work, like, I've got the journaling first for reflection, and I have to actually, like, go slow with the writing to get all my thoughts down, so it's another slowing down mechanism. Meditation, which I have not been good at recently, but when I do, um, allow myself that time. And, I've noticed the funny thing is the reason meditation's not happening is it's not in my schedule, right?
sure,
Yeah. So when I do allow myself that time, it helps create that like spaciousness in my life so that like it does
Mhm.
seem realistic to write a list of things that light me up and let them, I don't know, marinate, right? Like in that
Mhm.
mindset, it makes sense. Um, and then I think it's really a matter of for me, and I'm probably forgetting some things I said I was going to do. But for me, I think I'm waking up every day saying go slow.
Mhm.
And and I do have a certain amount of self-awareness just developed over my work with you and with therapists and different kinds of healing over the years, is that when I find myself like getting anxious and going fast because it just for some reason the productivity feels better or the anxiety is, I guess, kind of both fed and um ameliorated, like with going fast,
Mhm.
seems like it is. I can have that awareness and go, okay, like I need to slow myself down in this moment. Um, and take a breath and go like, what's next? Or does this really have to be done today?
I
Uh,
love
and that's something that not everyone will have access to depending on where you are in your journey, because it took me years to get there, but I hope that they will have access to that, to just see themselves starting to rush
Mhm.
and then having to pull it back. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that is, all such great points, and I think what we've talked about too is just you talked about, like, your day-to-day eating, you've slowed down intentionally.
Yeah, actually
Um,
active chewing. I mean, that sounds like so um granular, but it's true. Like I was rushing through my meals to get to the next work thing.
right,
Mhm.
right, and working out, right, is being
Yes.
really intentional about your form and making sure that you
Mhm.
can really feel, like, the muscles that are and then you talked about, like, walking the dog and paying dogs
Mhm.
paying attention to what's happening around you, and all of those have this element of presence,
Mm, yeah.
right, which is so important, and by simply by being present and practicing that act of slowing down, it slows everything down, and
Mhm.
it gives you space, right? You talked about spaciousness, because then you have the ability, it doesn't feel like the walls are closing in and
Mhm.
you're in this panic. It's just like, oh, I can take a deep breath. I can look around at what my options are. I can think about what would nourish me right now, what would make me feel good right now, and it gives you the opportunity that when things are going sideways, to pull back for a second, feel your feet on the ground and go, what do I really need right now? Maybe it's 5 minutes of standing barefoot in the grass. Maybe
Mhm.
it's, having a solo dance party. Maybe it is a hot cup of tea, all of those things. And I think what you're talking about, we're coming up on time because I really wanted to make sure that we had I love this conversation. I'm super
Yeah.
excited about it. And I also know that it's really hard to watch people live for too
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Yes.
But what I love about the conversation is talking about okay, great. Now I'm going to forget my train of thought. Help me, help me, help me. I think it's you mentioned when we talk about really cultivating your peace, right?
Mhm.
And you are cultivating your peace through those actions that fill you back up. Those are the things that bring you joy, that nourish you, whether it's meditating or journaling or going for a walk with your dogs. And you're getting so much more out of that in those moments. And then there's also the protecting your peace, which is setting boundaries. And in your case, it is, calendaring things out,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
that you have a really clear way of saying yes or no, available or not, instead of being pulled 15 different directions.
Mhm.
And I also think intentionality is really important when you talk about protecting your peace. So all of these, that's like the structure that goes to support and protect your peace. And as you practice those things, and it is a practice,
Yes.
people, I mean, every day. There are days when, I will go a million miles an hour and I'll all of a sudden burst into tears and just go, what is happening right now? And
Mhm.
it's not until I can put my feet back on the ground and get back in touch that I can realize what's happening. So it is a practice ongoing. And is there any last things you want to say?
No, I just think that everything you said and helped me with has been so beneficial. And I, like you said, it's a practice, but I definitely feel it with practicing and using these tools, it's doable. And I wouldn't have said maybe a few years ago that I thought like you could live this way, in intentionality. and it's possible.
Yeah.
Um, not ever perfect, but possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfectly imperfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for spending
Thanks.
the morning with me, and let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more of this. I would love to do more, and we're kind of right now playing around, having fun, and just seeing what works. But this felt really good to me. So
Thanks, Bridget.
thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Now I need to figure out how to end it. Oh, there we go.